Walter Costa didn't walk into Street Augustine Hospital. He stormed in, 30 suited enforcers at his back. Because Rose Maxwell wasn't just bruised. She was being taken home by the man who put her there. But when the Mafia boss stepped between her and her corrupt stepfather, the hospital froze security, nurses, even cops. What Walter did next didn't just stop a beating. It exposed a truth no one was prepared to face. If this story pulled you in, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss what's coming next. I've got another unforgettable story dropping tomorrow. And while you're here, jump into the comments and tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing our community from all around the world. Alright, let's get back into it. At 2:13 inches the morning, Walter Costa's encrypted phone pulsed just once, the alert reserved for situations where someone was dying or someone had betrayed him. He almost didn't look. Almost. But then a name flashed across the screen, sent from a number that wasn't supposed to know how to reach him. Rose Maxwell. Trauma ward. Street Augustine Hospital. Walter straightened slowly, as though a wire inside his spine had been pulled tight. The office around him, floor-to-ceiling windows. The city sprawled in glittering silence below, blurred to a distant haze. He accepted the call. A woman's whisper spilled through, trembling at the edges. "Mr. Costa? Please don't hang up. I don't know who else to call." "What happened?" Walter asked. No greeting, no tone, just a blade of a voice. "It's Rose Maxwell," the nurse said. "She was admitted 30 minutes ago. Facial fractures, bruised ribs, contusions across her arms. Her stepfather says she fell down the stairs." Walter closed his eyes. He had seen too many falls. "Is she conscious?" "Barely. And sir, he wants to take her home at sunrise. Legally, he can. Unless someone challenges custody or files protective grounds, she goes back." A muscle ticked in Walter's jaw. The whole city could collapse and he wouldn't flinch. But this name, this girl, was the one vulnerability he had never managed to cauterize. "What room?" 4B. "But Detective Weaver is already talking to security. He's saying..." He ended the call. For a long breath, Walter didn't move. The digital clock on his desk flicked to 2:14. Outside, the city kept breathing, unaware that his world had just shifted off its axis. On the wall behind him hung a framed photograph, 2 younger men leaning against a rusted truck, laughing at something long forgotten. One of them was Walter, lean and sharp-eyed. The other was Ethan Maxwell, broad-shouldered, loyal to the bone, the man who once shoved Walter out of the line of fire and took a bullet meant for him. The last thing Ethan ever said, blood soaking into the asphalt beneath them, was, "If anything happens to Rose, watch over her." Walter had kept that promise the only way he knew how, silently. An anonymous scholarship here, medical bills paid, a lawyer nudged to assist her mother, all without Rose knowing the man in the shadows who ensured she never drowned. He had convinced himself distance was protection, that she was safer never knowing the world he ruled. Now his distance had failed her. Walter picked up his phone again, this time with movement so precise it bordered on mechanical. He tapped 3 encrypted contacts. "Wake everyone," he said when the first answered. A pause, then a sharp inhale. "Everyone? Full presence. Suits only. No weapons drawn unless they draw first. Wheels up in 15. He ended before questions could form. He shrugged on a black suit jacket, collar open, tattoos curling up his throat like silent threats. The office lights dimmed behind him as he strode toward the elevator. His reflection in the stainless steel doors was a man carved from the things people feared most: precision, control, consequence. The elevator opened onto the private garage. Engines roared to life, one after another, as 30 men in dark suits stepped into formation. No one asked why. Men in the Costa Syndicate didn't need explanations. They followed weather patterns, and tonight they saw a storm. Walter slid into the back of the lead SUV. "Hospital," he said. The convoy rolled out in silence, carving through the sleeping city like a shadow stitched from steel and determination. Red lights turned green for them. Traffic cameras flickered and died. No one dared slow their momentum. Walter stared out the window, watching the skyline drift by in sharp fragments. In that cold reflection, he saw Rose as she had been the last time he'd glimpsed her, 16, hopeful, unaware of the world her father had died escaping. He remembered the letter her mother wrote before she passed, thanking an anonymous benefactor for making life survivable. He remembered deleting the message before replying, telling himself it was better if Rose believed hope came from somewhere ordinary, not from a man like him. Street Augustine appeared ahead, a monolith of white light and glass. Walter's SUV glided to a stop beneath the emergency awning. The other vehicles fanned out. His men stepped out first, controlled, coordinated, a silent perimeter forming without a spoken order. Inside the hospital, fluorescent lights buzzed softly, unaware they were illuminating the beginning of a war. Walter moved through the sliding doors, and every person in sight froze. Nurses stilled mid-stride. The receptionist's hand hovered over a clipboard. Security instinctively reached for radios but didn't speak into them. He didn't look at anyone. He didn't need to. His presence did the talking. "Rose Maxwell," he said to the trembling receptionist. "Our room 4B, sir." "But her stepfather, he's—" Walter turned away before she finished. "Elevator, 4th floor, east wing." Each step was measured, soundless, efficient. The kind of walk that belonged to someone who expected no obstacles because he'd already removed the possibility of them. On the 4th floor, a tall man in detective's attire stood outside Rose's door, sweating through his shirt despite the cold. "Weaver. You." Weaver spat, puffing up like a man leaning on the badge pinned to his chest. "She's my daughter. You're trespassing." Walter stopped inches from him. He didn't blink, didn't speak, just watched Weaver choke on his own bravado. One of Walter's lieutenants leaned close to whisper. He tried to sign her out already. Nurses stalled him. Walter's gaze sharpened, a predator marking the first move of the hunt. "You'll stay away from her," Weaver snapped. Walter opened the door. Weaver's hand shot out to grab him but froze as 30 suited men shifted all at once, a wave of silent threat sharper than knives. Inside, Rose lay curled on her side, a bruise spreading across her cheek like spilled ink. Her hands trembled against the sheets. Walter stepped forward, voice low, steady, made of stone. "Rose," he said, "you're not going home with him." Her eyes opened wide, terrified, disbelieving. For the first time in years, Walter felt the weight of a promise pull him to his knees. "I'm here now," he said, and the war began. The hallway outside Rose's room seemed to shrink around Walter, as though the building itself recognized a predator in its bloodstream. Weaver sputtered behind him, voice cracking between outrage and panic, but Walter didn't spare him a glance. He stepped out of Rose's room with a controlled inhale, the kind that could turn into violence or strategy depending on what the moment required. Rian, his lieutenant, moved to his side immediately. More staff are showing up downstairs. Security's nervous. His voice was quiet, low enough that only Walter could hear. "We've got the perimeter set like you asked." "Good," Walter said. His tone didn't rise, but the air around him seemed to tighten, as if the walls themselves held their breath. Weaver lunged forward. "You don't get to walk in here like you own the place. She's my daughter." Walter faced him fully for the first time. The contrast between them was almost obscene. Weaver flushed, sweating, pupils blown with anger. Walter cold, still, built from unspoken threat and discipline. The dim hallway lights caught the ink on his throat, shadows curling like serpents. "You don't speak for her anymore," Walter said. Weaver's lips curled. "You think your little parade of criminals scares me? I have the badge. I have authority. And she goes home with me in a few hours, no matter what you say." Behind Walter, 6 men in dark suits shifted not aggressively, but in that subtle, a synchronized way that communicated a single message. "Try it." A nurse rounded the corner at that exact moment, skidding to a stop when she saw the wall of suits. Her nerves were obvious, eyes wide, breath caught, but she forced herself to speak. "Mr. Costa, sir." She swallowed, smoothing her scrubs. "Rose asked for you." "Again. She's awake," Weaver exploded. "She doesn't get to ask for him. She's confused and traumatized. Walter lifted a hand. The gesture was small, but it shut everyone up, including the furious detective. The nurse practically melted with relief before scurrying away toward the station. Walter turned his head slightly toward Rian. "Keep him outside this hall," he murmured. Rian's expression flickered with something dark. With pleasure, 2 men flanked Weaver instantly, not touching him, not threatening him, just existing close enough to remind him how breakable the human body was. Walter walked away, the scent of antiseptic and cold metal guiding him through the sterile labyrinth of Street Augustine. But the hospital wasn't quiet anymore. Not with 30 suited enforcers stationed like marble statues along the walls. Not with nurses whispering to each other. Not with security guards pacing like they'd stumbled into the wrong movie. When he stepped into the elevator, a young guard caught his eye, swallowed hard, and looked away. Fear was a language Walter understood better than most, not because he used it, but because he knew exactly what it did to people. Fear made some men dangerous. Fear made others honest. Walter would soon find out which kind Weaver was. The elevator doors slid open onto the main lobby. A gasp spread like a ripple when Walter stepped out. 30 men, sharp suits, polished shoes, disciplined stillness, lined the lobby in a formation that suggested military training and something far older: loyalty. Not one of them spoke. They didn't need to. Walter's presence was the command. A security chief approached, sweat beading along his hairline. "Sir, with all due respect, this is a hospital. You can't bring an entire entourage in here. People are frightened." Walter glanced at him. "We're not here for anyone but her." "That may be, but Detective Weaver said." Walter stepped closer. The chief's throat bobbed. "Weaver," Walter said softly, lost his claim the moment he put bruises on her skin. The chief exhaled shakily. "We don't have proof of that, and until the police finalize their report, he still has custody." Walter's jaw tightened. "Where is the attending doctor?" "In the trauma ward." "But sir," Walter was already walking. The chief hesitated, then followed. So did whispers. Nurses, patients, janitors. Everyone watched the suited procession move through the hospital, like a tide that didn't belong but refused to recede. When Walter reached the trauma ward doors, a nurse stepped forward. "She's in pain," she murmured. "But she calmed when you went in earlier." "I don't think she's afraid of you." Walter paused. His expression didn't change, but something inside him did a shift, quiet and seismic. "She shouldn't have had to ask for me," he said. The nurse's eyes softened. "Maybe, but she did." He nodded once and stepped inside. Machines beeped rhythmically. Rose lay curled on her side again, fighting sleep, fighting fear. When she saw him, her breath hitched a trembling sound that cracked in the middle. "You came back," she whispered. Walter moved closer, pulling up the chair beside her bed. "I won't leave you with him." Her fingers twitched toward him. "Not for protection, just to confirm he was real," he said. "He said no one would believe me," she choked out. "He said I owed him, that I needed him." Walter's voice was low and controlled, but the edge beneath it was lethal. "You owe him nothing." Her eyes filled. "Why are you here?" "You don't even know me." "I knew your father," he said. Something inside her broke. A sob tore out quiet, desperate, relieved. She covered her face with shaking hands. Walter didn't touch her, didn't pull her against him the way instinct demanded. Instead, he placed his hand on the railing of her bed, a silent vow. Outside the room, footsteps pounded. Rian burst in without knocking. "Boss, we have a problem," Weaver called back up. "2 officers are already downstairs asking questions." Walter stood slowly. "Keep them away from her," he said. Rian nodded. "And Weaver?" Walter's eyes darkened, the storm gathering. "If he tries to enter this room again, remind him who he's dealing with." A scream echoed down the hall, Weaver shouting orders, furious, losing control. Rose flinched. Walter reached for the door. "You're safe," he said without turning. "And I'm not leaving until he can't touch you again." Then he stepped into the hallway, the war sharpening around him. The hallway trembled with the echo of Weaver's shouting, but Walter didn't spare him a second glance. His men dealt with noise. He dealt with threats. And right now, the real danger wasn't Weaver's volume, it was Rose's silence. He closed her door behind him, shutting out the chaos. The room fell quiet again, filtered by the dim blue glow of a heart monitor. Rose lay on her side, fingers curled around the blanket, knuckles white with tension. Her eyes darted toward the door, terrified that the man outside might break through. "He's not getting in," Walter said softly. Rose inhaled shakily, but she didn't answer. Her gaze dropped to her bruised hands, trembling every few seconds like her body had learned fear too well to stop. Walter approached slowly, not wanting to startle her. He wasn't used to moving gently. He wasn't used to softening anything. But the girl in this bed demanded something different from the violence he carried in his bones. He took the chair beside her again. "Look at me, Rose." It took her a moment. Her chin lifted in tiny increments, like she was fighting a weight pressing down on her. And when she finally met his eyes, there was no anger there, just exhaustion, raw and stripped and scared. "Tell me what happened," he said. "No one ever believes me," she whispered. "I will." She shook her head, hair falling into her face. "He'll find out. He always finds out." Walter leaned forward, lowering his voice until it was barely a breath. "He's not finding anything out. Not anymore." Her lips parted, but no words came. Her gaze flicked to the doorway again, as if expecting Weaver's shadow to appear. "Rose," Walter tried again. "You're safe." The words landed inside her like something foreign, something she didn't quite know how to hold. Finally, she whispered, "He pushed me." Walter went completely still. She swallowed. "Tonight," he said. "I embarrassed him in front of one of his friends. I didn't say anything, I swear. He just got angry and shoved me down the stairs. When I woke up, he was standing over me telling the paramedics I slipped." Walter's jaw tightened. "Has he hurt you before?" A tear slipped down her cheek. "Yes." "How many times?" Her voice cracked. I stopped counting. She pulled her blanket tighter around her shoulders, curling into herself like she expected impact. The bruises along her collarbone darkened under the sterile lights, forming ugly mosaics of fingerprints. Walter forced his breathing to stay even. Rage was easy, too easy, but she needed steadiness, not explosions. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" he asked. "Because he's a detective." Her laugh was small and broken. "People trust him, and he always said if I told the wrong person." She trailed off, staring at the heart monitor. The beeping kept her anchored. "What did he say, Rose?" She wiped her face with the back of her hand. "That they'd think I was lying. That I'd be sent away. That he'd keep the house, the money, everything. And that it was my fault my mom died." Walter's blood froze. "Your mother," her breath hitched. "He said she fell down the stairs too. But I heard them fighting that night. She told him she wanted to leave, and then I heard a thud." Her voice lowered to a whisper. "I think he pushed her. I think he lied about everything." Silence swallowed the room. Walter stared at her small, broken, trying to hold the weight of something a grown man would crumble beneath, and felt something inside him shift. Rage, yes, but stronger than rage was a grief he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years. He had failed Ethan, and he had failed Rose by staying away. "Why didn't you call me?" he asked quietly. Her brows knitted. "I didn't know I could." "I've been helping you for years," he said. "Not directly, but I've been watching." She blinked rapidly. The scholarship? The emergency funds? That was you?" He nodded once. "Why?" she whispered. His throat tightened. "Because your father asked me to." Her hand flew to her mouth. A sound broke out of her, not quite a sob, not quite a gasp, something raw, wounded, disbelieving. "He said you were trouble," she whispered. "He said you were dangerous, that you'd ruin my life." Walter's voice hardened. "He projected his sins onto me." Rose shook her head again, overwhelmed. "I didn't think anyone would come. I thought he'd take me home, and no one would ever know." "I know," Walter said, "and I'm not leaving." Her gaze dropped to his hands, strong, scarred, resting calmly on his knees. "You're not scared of him," she said, almost in awe. "I'm scared of failing someone I promised to protect." Her eyes filled until tears spilled freely. He didn't touch her, he didn't trust himself to, but he lowered his voice to something steady and unshakable. "You're safe now, Rose." The door suddenly crashed open. It wasn't Weaver. It was Mateo, breathing hard. "Boss," he said in a low, urgent tone. "Weaver's losing control. He's screaming at the nurses. Security's calling upstairs. And 2 officers are on their way. We need you outside." Rose flinched violently at the commotion. Walter stood. "Keep him out of this room," he said. Mateo nodded. "Understood." Walter turned back to Rose. She was trembling, eyes wide, tears tracking down her bruised face. "Don't leave me with him," she pleaded in a whisper so small it stabbed straight through him. Walter's expression softened just for her, just for this moment. "I won't," he said. "Not for a second." He stepped into the hallway, closing the door gently behind him. The war waited outside, but now he knew exactly what he was fighting for. The hallway outside Rose's room pulsed with rising tension, the kind that warned everyone, staff, patients, even the walls, that something was about to snap. Walter stepped out just as Weaver's voice cracked through the air like a whip. "I want her discharged now. She's my daughter, and you don't get to keep her from me." A nurse flinched. A security guard took a step back. Weaver's rage filled the corridor like smoke, thick and suffocating. Mateo moved to Walter's side. "Boss, he's losing it." He tried to shove one of the nurses when she refused the release paperwork. Walter's expression didn't change, but his presence intensified the kind of cold, silent authority that could silence a room without a single command. "Where is he?" Walter asked. Mateo tilted his head. 30 feet down. "He's coming this way." Walter didn't move. He stood in front of Rose's door, one hand resting lightly on the handle like a sentinel carved from stone. Footsteps thundered down the hall. Weaver appeared, red-faced, sweating, veins bulging at his temples. His badge hung crooked on his chest, as if it were struggling to distance itself from the man wearing it. When he saw Walter blocking the doorway, his fury erupted. "You!" he barked. "Move, now." Walter didn't blink, didn't shift, didn't acknowledge Weaver as anything more than a noise in his path. "This is a hospital corridor," Walter murmured. "Lower your voice." "You don't give orders here," Weaver spat. "She is my daughter, and I will take her home." Rian stepped forward, voice calm but lethal. "You're not taking her anywhere." Weaver's face twisted. "You're interfering with a lawful guardian. That's kidnapping. I'll have all of you arrested." Walter's men didn't respond verbally. They didn't need to. They stepped subtly closer, forming a silent wall behind Walter-tailored suits, cold expressions, the kind of stillness that didn't come from training but from being dangerous. Weaver jabbed a finger at Walter's chest. "Get out of my way!" Walter's voice dropped to something quiet enough to terrify. "Touch me, and you'll never touch another woman again." A nurse standing nearby gasped. Weaver's hand froze midair. "You think you scare me?" he hissed, though his voice wavered. "I'm the law. I'll bury you in charges. I'll bury your whole organization. You think anyone here is going to choose you over a decorated officer?" A security guard stepped forward hesitantly. "Detective Weaver, please calm down. You're disrupting the floor." "Weaver," Walter said, his tone flat and final. "You laid a hand on her tonight. You fractured her ribs. You bruised her face. You terrorized her. And you expect to walk into this room as if nothing happened?" Weaver's face flushed deeper, nearly purple. "She lied. She always lies. She does this for attention." The door behind Walter creaked open. Rose stood there, small, trembling, hospital gown hanging off her bruised shoulders. Her hair was mussed, eyes swollen from crying, breath shallow. "Stop," she whispered. Weaver turned sharply. "Rose, go inside. You're confused. You need rest." She flinched at his tone. Walter angled himself instinctively, blocking Weaver's direct line of sight to her. Weaver's eyes widened, fury igniting. "She doesn't need you," he snarled. "She needs her father." "Stepfather," Mateo corrected. "Big difference." Weaver ignored him and lunged forward. He didn't get far. Walter moved exactly 1 inch. Just one. And all 30 of his men shifted in tandem. The effect was instantaneous. Nurses froze mid-step. Patients peeked from behind curtains. Security stiffened. The hallway filled with electric silence, an unspoken warning woven through the stillness of every suited man. Weaver halted, fear flickering behind his rage. Rose's breath hitched. "Please," she whispered. "Don't let him take me." Her voice broke something open in the room. Walter stepped completely in front of her now, shielding her with his body. "You heard her," he said. "She's not going with you." Weaver's voice rose to a nearly hysterical pitch. "You don't have the authority," Walter cut him off. "Authority isn't the same as ownership, and you own nothing here." Security looked between the two men, between the raging detective and the silent storm of a Mafia boss protecting a bruised girl, and something shifted. Doubt, discomfort, realization. A young guard stepped forward. "Detective, maybe you should wait until morning." Weaver stared at him, betrayed. "You're siding with them?" "I'm siding with the girl who's scared of you," the guard said quietly. Weaver's fury cracked. "You have no idea what you're doing." He lunged again, not at Walter this time, but toward the door, toward Rose. He didn't make it 2 steps. Walter caught him by the front of his shirt, pushing him back with one hand planted against his chest like he was made of paper instead of muscle and ego. Weaver's feet scraped across the floor as Walter held him in place effortlessly. "Don't," Walter said. "Just one word. Cold, deadly, final." Weaver writhed, but Walter didn't tighten his grip. He didn't need to. The threat lived in the stillness. Rian leaned close to Weaver's ear. "You're done," Weaver gasped. "Let me go." Walter released him, not gently, not violently, but in a way that made it obvious Weaver was beneath his strength. Weaver stumbled backward, catching himself on a cart. His face burned with humiliation. "This isn't over," he rasped. "I'll get her out of this hospital. I'll get all of you arrested. You think you can stand in my way?" Walter stepped forward once. Weaver shut up instantly. Walter didn't raise his voice. "Touch her again, and this becomes a different kind of night." Every staff member who overheard felt the air change. Weaver backed away slowly, eyes darting, fear finally cracking through his outrage. He grabbed his phone, muttering into it angrily as he stormed down the hall. When he was out of earshot, Mateo exhaled. Boss. He's calling backup. Walter glanced at Rose, shaking, clutching the doorway. Let him call whoever he wants, Walter said. I'm not leaving her. He stepped back into her room, closing the door gently. The hallway erupted behind him. The war had begun. The moment Walter closed Rose's door behind him, the muffled sounds of Weaver's rage faded into a distant storm. Inside the room, Rose sat curled against the pillows, arms wrapped protectively around herself. Her breath trembled with each inhale. The fluorescent lights seemed too harsh for her bruised skin, too unforgiving for the terror lingering in her eyes. Walter approached slowly. He won't reach you, he said. Not now. Not again. She nodded, but her gaze stayed glued to the blanket, as though the fabric itself held her together. He's calling people, she whispered. He always does that when he's scared. He gets louder, meaner, more dangerous. Walter felt a muscle tighten in his jaw. He's losing control. That makes him predictable. Rose flinched when a distant shout echoed from the hallway. Instinctively, she shrank back. Look at me, Walter said gently. She did. Barely. I need you to trust me. Her lips parted in disbelief. I don't know how to trust anyone. The people who hurt you made sure of that. He paused. But I'm not one of them. For a moment, neither spoke. The heart monitor clicked softly between them, its steady rhythm the only reassurance in a world collapsing around her. Walter didn't touch her, he didn't dare, but the intention in his voice was a barrier stronger than fists or guns. A knock sounded soft, coded before the door eased open and Rian slipped inside. Boss, he said quietly. You need to hear this. Walter turned to Rose. I'll be outside. 2 minutes. She nodded, gripping her pillow as if it were an anchor. Once they stepped into the hallway, Rian handed Walter a tablet. Mateo and the others have been digging. And it's worse than we thought. Walter swiped through the first file. Documents, bank records, transfer slips, all bearing Rose's name, all forged. What's this? Walter asked, though dread already slithered through him. Her trust, Rian said. The one you set up through the foundation. He's been siphoning money out of it little by little using authorizations he faked. He forged her signature on 5 different forms. Walter's grip tightened on the tablet until the plastic groaned. He used her as a revenue stream, Rian continued. And he's been doing it for years. Walter's pulse throbbed once in his throat, a slow, controlled fury. Weaver wasn't just abusive. He was strategic, calculated. He had turned Rose into a resource, not a daughter. That's not all, Rian said, pulling up another file. Mateo traced tonight's timeline. 2 hours before Rose was admitted to the hospital, Weaver made a phone call. To who? Rian hesitated. To a rival crew. Walter's eyes darkened. He's been feeding them information about our people, Rian added. Times, locations, weaknesses. He's been building leverage. And Rose was part of that leverage. How? Rian exhaled. We think he wanted to pressure her into signing off her trust fully, not just the forged withdrawals. They think there's more money there than there is. He promised them a cut. Walter went quiet. Rian continued. Boss, he didn't just hurt her. He planned this. He's been isolating her on purpose, breaking her down, cutting her off from support, all to control the money and buy favor with the wrong people. Walter looked at the digital signatures again, Rose's name forged by a man who claimed fatherhood only when it benefited him. Each false stroke was a betrayal carved into paperwork. How long? Walter asked. 3 years, at least. 3 years of stolen funds. 3 years of Rose trying to survive a house designed to suffocate her. 3 years Walter could have intervened, but convinced himself staying away protected her. Rian hesitated before opening the next file. Boss, there's one more thing. A picture filled the screen. A police report. Filed by Rose's mother, weeks before she died. Walter froze. She reported him for domestic violence, Rian said. He made the report disappear. Rage flickered through Walter, quiet, contained, lethal. She knew, Walter murmured. She tried to run, and we think that's why she didn't make it. Rian's voice dropped. Mateo's still digging into the autopsy. There were inconsistencies. The tablet shook in Walter's hand. Slowly, deliberately, he set it down. Weaver hadn't stumbled into violence. He had perfected it. Walter inhaled once, steadying the fire inside. Keep everything. Secure backup copies. Nothing gets erased. Already done. And the rival crew he contacted? Watching them. They don't know we know. Good, Walter said. Because when Weaver falls, He won't fall alone. Rian nodded. What do you want to do now? Walter glanced back toward Rose's room. I want to tell her the truth, he said. But not like this. She's too fragile. What should we tell the others? That the detective isn't just abusive. He's a traitor. And the plan? Walter's expression settled into something cold and precise. Collect everything. When the time is right, we break him with his own sins. A shout erupted from down the hall. Weaver again, slamming his fist against the wall, barking at a guard who refused to let him pass. Rian tensed. Should we restrain him? No, Walter said. Let him roar. Every second he loses control is another piece of evidence. Rian allowed himself a dark smirk. Walter turned back to the door. I need to speak to her now. Rian stepped aside. Walter re-entered Rose's room. She looked up quickly, trying to read his face, trying to determine if more fear was coming. Is something wrong? She whispered. He sat beside her again, voice soft. You were right to be afraid of him. Her breath hitched. Did he hurt someone else? Walter considered the truth, the forged signatures, the financial exploitation, the erased police report, the looming suspicion around her mother's death. Yes, he said quietly. He did. Rose's eyes filled. Then he's never going to let me go. That's where you're wrong, Walter answered. He's losing his grip, and we're taking everything back. She stared at him, searching for disbelief, but found none. You think I can get away from him? She whispered. I know you can, Walter said. Because I'm not letting him use you anymore. Her tears fell silently. Outside, Weaver screamed again, rage echoing through the hospital like the last roars of a dying animal. Rose flinched. Walter stood. He's unraveling, Walter murmured. And I'm going to make sure he never touches you again. He stepped into the doorway. Rest, Rose. The past is on our side now. And with that, the hunt for Weaver's downfall truly began. The first sign that Weaver's desperate plan was unfolding came not from the screaming down the hall, but from the sudden silence that followed it. A hush spread through the staff, nurses stiffening, security shifting uneasily, doctors glancing toward the elevators as if expecting trouble to walk out. Trouble did. The elevator doors opened with a soft ding, and two uniformed officers stepped into the fourth-floor corridor. One older, sharp-eyed, jaw clenched. The other younger, shoulders tight, gaze flicking nervously around as if he already regretted being there. Weaver spotted them immediately and surged forward like a drowning man clinging to a rope. Finally, he barked. Arrest him. He jabbed a finger down the hall toward Walter, who was just stepping from Rose's room, his expression unreadable, his posture steady as gravity. The older officer straightened. Detective Weaver, we got your call. You said you're being obstructed in your duty? Yes, Weaver snapped. That man and his... He waved his arms wildly at Walter's men. That criminal entourage are interfering with my right to retrieve my daughter. I want them removed from this floor and charged with intimidation. The younger officer swallowed hard. He brought an entourage into a hospital? Walter walked toward them. Slow, controlled, hands at his sides. Every suited man behind him straightened, but none stepped forward. We're not interfering, Walter said calmly. We're protecting a victim. Weaver's face turned crimson. Victim, don't you dare. Walter didn't even look at him. His attention stayed on the officers. She's in room 4B, Walter said. Bruised, frightened, afraid to go home with him. The older officer's gaze sharpened. You a relative? No. Legal guardian? No. Then step aside. Rian moved in, placing himself subtly between the officers and the doorway. She's under medical assessment. The doctors advised against her release. Weaver nearly screamed. The doctors answer to me. No, a nurse whispered from behind the station. We don't. Everyone turned. The nurse, a woman with tired eyes and red indentations from her mask, stood trembling but resolute. We don't answer to you, she repeated. And you scared her. She begged us not to let you near her. The younger officer swallowed. Hard. Weaver's fury snapped toward her. You're overstepping. Walter cut him off without raising his voice. Your problem is that people finally saw you. Really saw you. Weaver spun back toward the officers, voice cracking. Arrest him already. The older officer exhaled sharply, stepping toward Walter. Sir, with respect, this is a police matter. No, Walter said. This is a protection matter. Meaning what exactly? Walter didn't blink. Meaning if you put her back in his custody, you're sending a battered young woman home with her abuser. The younger officer's jaw tightened. Detective Weaver is a decorated officer, the older one said. We have protocol. And she has broken bones, Walter replied. Silence. Not empty silence, charged silence. Everyone in the hall felt it. The younger officer stepped slightly closer to the door. Can I speak to her? Weaver lunged. Absolutely not. The officer froze, then looked at him, really looked. Weaver's sweat-soaked shirt, his wild eyes, his clenched fists. Detective, the younger officer said quietly. Why don't you want us to talk to her? Weaver went rigid. For the first time, fear not rage flickered across his features. Walter watched the shift with surgical precision. She's confused, Weaver snapped. She's traumatized. She'll say anything. The older officer finally faced him fully. You said she fell down the stairs. She did. A nurse reported bruising around her wrists and contusions across her back. Weaver's mouth opened and closed like an animal caught in a cage. Walter spoke into the silence. Ask her yourselves. Rian stepped aside from the doorway. Weaver spun toward him. You let them talk to her and she'll destroy everything. Walter walked closer, one measured step at a time, until he stood inches from Weaver. She'll tell the truth, Walter said. That's what scares you. Weaver trembled with rage. You think you've won something here? I know people. I have connections. You'll regret. The elevator dinged again. A security supervisor stepped out, face tight. Weaver, you need to calm down. If you keep yelling at staff, we'll have to remove you from the floor. You can't, Weaver shouted. I'm a detective, and I'm head of hospital security, the supervisor said. Tonight, that outranks you. Weaver's nostrils flared. His world, once propped up by fear and authority, was crumbling in a hospital hallway. The younger officer approached Walter, hesitant. If what you're saying is true, if she's scared to go home, we can file an emergency statement. But we need her to say so herself. She will, Walter said quietly. But we need you and your men to back up a bit, the officer added. She might speak more freely without an audience. Walter nodded to his men. They stepped back in perfect synchronization, controlled, disciplined, respectful, in a way that felt more like power than intimidation. Weaver tried pushing past them, but Mateo blocked him with a single palm to the chest. Stay put. The officers entered Rose's room. The hallway tensed, every breath held, every heartbeat waiting. Weaver paced like a caged animal, muttering curses under his breath. She'll lie. She'll twist things. She always. Walter folded his hands behind his back. She'll finally be heard. Minutes passed. Long, excruciating minutes. Finally, the door opened. The younger officer stepped out first. His face said everything. He looked shaken. The older officer followed, eyes grim. Weaver rushed forward. Well, what did she say? The older officer stared at him, disbelief turning slowly into disgust. She's terrified of you, he said. And she has every right to be. Weaver's face drained. The younger officer added softly. She begged us not to send her home. Silence hit the hallway like a blow. Walter's jaw tightened, not in triumph, but in a dark, quiet grief. Weaver took a step back, then another. His certainty splintered. You're making a mistake, he whispered. She's manipulating you. You don't understand. The older officer shook his head. What I understand is that she's injured, scared, and consistent. And you're unstable. He turned to the supervisor. Until further notice, Detective Weaver is not to approach the patient. Weaver's mouth opened in horror. You can't. Walter stepped forward, his voice a low tide pulling the world inward. This is only the beginning, he said. And Weaver finally understood. His power was slipping. The hospital no longer belonged to him. And the truth was coming. The hallway still hummed with the aftershock of the officer's decision. Weaver stood frozen, as if someone had severed the strings that held him upright. His badge, once a shield, now looked like a fragile piece of metal clinging to a collapsing reputation. Walter watched him with a calmness that unnerved everyone around. Not serenity control, a storm held in place by will alone. Rian approached him quietly. Boss, Mateo's here. Walter didn't turn immediately. He let Weaver feel the weight of this moment, the first real consequence pressing against him. Only then did he step away from Rose's door. Bring him, Walter said. Mateo appeared from around the corner, shoulders squared, a folder tucked beneath his arm. His expression was carved from something sharp. Purpose, determination, maybe even anger rare for him. We found it, Mateo said, anchoring his voice low. Found what? Weaver snapped, lunging forward. What lies are you feeding them now? Mateo ignored him completely and handed the folder to Walter. Walter opened it. The first page alone was enough to still the air. Bank transfers, forged documents, signatures crudely imitated. Rose's trust her future bled out through falsified forms. Weaver's face blanched. Those are fake. That's doctored. Mateo flipped to the next page. Police records. Reports filed, then erased. A domestic violence complaint filed by Rose's mother weeks before she died. A notation in the margin. Handled internally. A younger officer who'd remained in the hallway read over their shoulders and stiffened. Is this real? Yes, Mateo said. And there's more. He pulled out a flash drive and clicked it into a hospital laptop the security supervisor reluctantly provided. A video popped onto the screen. Grainy, shaky, Rose's voice. Stop, get off, ow, please, you're hurting me. Weaver lunged for the laptop, but 3 suited men stepped in front of him at once. That's taken out of context, he shouted. She was hysterical. Mateo played another clip. Weaver shouting, clear as day. If you tell anyone what happens in this house, I swear I'll bury you in lies. The younger officer looked sick. Detective, that's your voice. Weaver sputtered. She set me up. She edited. No editing, Mateo said. Time-stamped. Pulled off her old phone, backed up automatically. Weaver's composure disintegrated. Walter watched him crumble, piece by piece, like a building struck at every structural point. But he didn't speak. He didn't need to. Mateo wasn't finished. He opened another file. Call logs. 2 hours before Rose entered the hospital, Weaver contacted associates from a rival crew. Promised leverage. Walter's eyes lowered. He used her. And he used your name, Mateo added. Said he could deliver intel on your people in exchange for favors. Weaver's voice cracked. You can't prove any of this in court. You assume this is going to court, Mateo replied calmly. A tremor ran through Weaver. The younger officer looked at Walter with something like dawning respect or fear. Does she know about any of this? No, Walter said. Not yet. The officer hesitated. Should she? She will, Walter said, but gently. Across the hall, the door to Rose's room cracked open. She peeked out, eyes wide and frightened. The bruises on her face looked darker under the hallway lights. She hadn't meant to interrupt. She just couldn't ignore the shouting. Walter's expression softened automatically. Back inside Rose. She shook her head. What's happening? Weaver tried to speak, but Mateo's men held him back. Rian stepped aside slightly, creating a path for her to see the laptop screen. Rose's gaze traveled downward. Her mother's erased police report, the forged signatures, the video file showing Weaver grabbing her arm. Her hand flew to her mouth. No, she whispered. No, no, no. Walter approached her slowly. Rose. She stumbled back against the doorframe, tears flooding her eyes. He killed her. He killed my mom, didn't he? He lied. All these years. Walter lifted a hand, stopping her spiral. Rose, listen. But she couldn't stop. Her breaths turned shallow. He said she fell. He said she was drunk. He said she... Her voice broke into a sob. He made me think she left us on purpose. Walter closed the space between them, his voice the only steady thing in the collapsing world around her. He lied because monsters need shadows, he said. And he didn't want anyone to see what he was. Rose covered her face, shaking. Why didn't anyone help us? The younger officer looked devastated. We didn't know. He hid everything. Mateo stepped forward and, for the first time, softened. Your mother tried, Rose. She reported him. She tried to get you out, but he erased the paper trail. Her knees buckled. Walter caught her before she fell, his hand gently gripping her elbow. She clung to him instinctively, sobs shaking through her bruised body. It's my fault, she choked out. He said I made her angry. He said she'd still be alive if I wasn't. No, Walter said sharply, cupping her shoulder to ground her. None of this is your fault. Do you hear me? None. She cried harder, burying her face against him. His hand scarred. Steady hovered for a moment before settling on her back, holding her as gently as he could manage. Weaver watched the scene, panic finally overtaking fury. Rose, he croaked. Don't listen to him. He's manipulating you. He's... Shut up, the younger officer snapped. Everyone went still. The young officer stepped forward, eyes hard. You hurt her. You lied about her mother. You abused your badge. And you expect us to protect you? Weaver backed away until he hit the wall. Walter looked at him with cold, quiet, Victory, not triumph, but justice. You built your world on silence, Walter said. Tonight it ends. Rose clutched his jacket, trembling. Make it stop, she whispered. I will, Walter promised. Starting now, he nodded to Matteo. Matteo closed the laptop, and the truth, undeniable, documented, damning, hung heavy in the hospital air. The war weaver thought he controlled had just shifted sides. The hallway had gone unnaturally quiet after the evidence dropped quiet in the way a battlefield gets seconds before the next explosion. Nurses whispered behind their stations. Security hovered near the elevators. Even Walter's men seemed to hold their breath as they watched Weaver crumple against the wall, pale and shaking, his world folding in on itself. Rose clung to Walter's jacket, breath shuddering in short, panicked bursts. Her tears dampened the fabric, but he didn't move, didn't push her away. His hand rested lightly on her upper back, steadying her with a gentleness none of the onlookers would have ever believed he possessed. Matteo closed the laptop, the soft click echoing like a final verdict. Weaver stared at the floor, chest heaving. I didn't. This isn't. But his words dissolved the moment they formed. Shame twisted his features, then morphed into something darker, something boiling and brittle. Walter shifted Rose slightly, easing her trembling as he whispered, You're safe now. He can't hurt you again. She nodded, though her eyes still flicked toward Weaver as if expecting him to lunge. For a few seconds, Weaver said nothing. Then, like a snapped wire, he exploded. You think this is over? He roared, surging to his feet. His voice bounced off the sterile walls, startling nurses and sending a ripple of alarm down the corridor. You think some forged files and fake videos are enough to bring me down? Matteo stepped instinctively forward, but Walter held up one hand, signaling restraint. Not yet. Weaver's gaze darted between the officers, the nurses, the security staff, wild, unhinged. His face was blotchy, sweat shining on his temple. He was a man drowning in the realization that his lies had finally run out of air. You're all idiots, Weaver spat. You think he jabbed a trembling finger at Walter, is some kind of savior? He's a criminal, a parasite. He's using her just like everyone else. Rose flinched again, shrinking behind Walter as Weaver pointed at her. Rose, Weaver barked, voice cracking. Tell them the truth. Tell them you made everything up. Tell them he manipulated you. Rian's expression darkened. Keep your voice down. No, Weaver screamed. She belongs with me. She's mine. The words struck the hallway like a slap. Rose gasped softly, gripping the back of Walter's sleeve like her life depended on it. Walter turned slowly. She was never yours, he said. Weaver's breath hitched, fury trembling through him like electricity arcing off a live wire. She was all I had left. Walter's tone remained calm, but his eyes sharpened. You had a wife who tried to leave, a daughter who tried to survive. You had chances. You chose violence. Weaver's jaw clenched so tightly a muscle twitched in his cheek. You ruined everything. He took a step forward. Matteo moved instantly, blocking Rose from Weaver's line of sight, standing like a pillar between her and danger. Weaver stopped short, shaking. Get out of my way. No, Matteo said. Just that. Weaver's eyes flamed. The older of the two officers stepped closer. Detective Weaver, we need you to calm down. Calm down? Weaver laughed a sharp, broken sound. Calm down? While he pointed at Walter again. Tries to undo 20 years of my life? The younger officer lifted a hand, attempting to de-escalate. Detective, let's step back and... Weaver shoved him. Hard. The officer slammed into a supply cart, knocking over sterile packs that scattered across the floor. Everyone froze. Security surged forward. Nurses gasped. Walter's men took one synchronized step that made the entire corridor tighten with tension. Weaver kept shouting, You're all against me. You're all buying his lies. Walter stepped forward, removing Rose from Weaver's line of fire. His voice dropped to a deadly whisper. You're unraveling. I'm fighting for my daughter. You're fighting to keep control of the last person you could manipulate, Walter replied. But she sees you now. Everyone does. Weaver's face twisted into something almost monstrous. She's nothing without me, he screamed. Rose flinched so violently she doubled over, hands covering her ears. Matteo crouched beside her instantly. Don't listen to him. None of that is true. But Weaver couldn't stop. Rage had taken the wheel, driving him toward the only thing he had left to cling to control, even if it destroyed him. You think you're her father? He raged at Walter. You think you know anything about raising a child? You're trash. You're a street rat who thinks a suit makes you a man. Walter didn't blink. And you, Weaver spat, turning back to Rose. You'll come home with me or... He didn't get to finish. Walter stepped between them so swiftly Weaver stumbled in surprise. You won't finish that sentence, Walter said. Weaver's eyes widened, not at Walter's words, but at the way the entire hallway shifted behind him. Walter's men stood at attention, forming a perfect wall of black suits and cold stares. No threats spoken, no weapons drawn, just an unbreakable line of loyalty. It was the moment Weaver realized he wasn't just outnumbered. He was outstatured, outmatched, out of time. But desperation made him reckless. With a snarl, Weaver reached for his holster. Chaos erupted. "Gun!" a nurse cried. Security lunged. The younger officer grabbed Weaver's arm, but Weaver's hand had already brushed the grip of his weapon. Before anyone could process the movement, Walter's voice rang out sharp, commanding, lethal. "Don't." The word cut through the corridor like a blade. Weaver froze. The younger officer clung to his arm. The older officer steadied his stance. A security guard reached for Weaver's shoulder. Everyone waited, breathing shallow, afraid the slightest movement would spark catastrophe. Weaver's fingers twitched over the holster. Walter took one step forward. "If you reach for that gun," he said, voice low and steady, "you won't walk out of this hospital tonight." The truth in his tone was unmistakable, not bluster, not threat. Fact. Weaver's arm trembled. Rage, humiliation, fear, the perfect storm inside him crackled across his nerves. He looked at Walter, at Rose, at the officers holding him, at the nurses watching with horror, at the men in suits standing as silent judgment. And then something inside him cracked audibly, visibly. He sagged, not out of remorse, out of defeat. The younger officer yanked his hand away from the holster. "Detective Grant Weaver, you're being placed under restraint for attempting to escalate a violent confrontation." "No!" Weaver howled, thrashing as the officer grabbed his wrists. "You can't do this. I'm a detective. You're out of control," the officer said. "And dangerous." Mateo gently lifted Rose to her feet. She watched, trembling, as the officers forced Weaver's hands behind his back. Her bruised face crumpled not in sympathy, but in the raw shock of seeing a monster lose its power. "This isn't happening," Weaver gasped as cuffs clicked around his wrists. "It is," the younger officer said quietly. "You're making a mistake," Weaver screamed. "I protected her. I raised her. You hurt her," Rose whispered. Weaver went silent. Her voice quivered as she repeated, louder this time. "You hurt me." Walter stood just behind her, steady as a wall built for one purpose, to shield her from the man collapsing before her. Weaver's knees buckled. The officer had to catch him. His eyes glistened with something close to desperation. "Rose," he rasped. "Don't let him take you. Don't let him." Mateo stepped forward, blocking Weaver's view of her completely. "Enough," he said. The officers lifted Weaver to his feet. Security opened the elevator for them. As Weaver was dragged past, he shot Walter one final look. "You think you saved her?" he hissed. "You have no idea what you've started." Walter didn't answer. He simply placed a hand on Rose's shoulder, quiet, steady, resolute, and Weaver was gone. The elevator doors slid shut. Rose exhaled a shaky breath she'd been holding for years. Mateo spoke first. "Boss, that was only round 1. Walter nodded. "Round 2, he said, looking at Rose, "is helping her heal." For the first time, Rose didn't flinch at his words. She leaned into him, whispering, "Thank you." Walter swallowed once, hard. "You're safe," he said. This time, he believed it. The elevator doors hissed shut on Weaver, and for a moment, the entire 4th floor of Street Augustine Hospital felt like it exhaled. Nurses unclenched their hands. Security radios quieted. Even the walls seemed to loosen their tension. But Rose didn't move. She stood rooted where she was, trembling, staring at the silver seam where the elevator had closed. Her throat bobbed as she swallowed. Her hands were curled into small, rigid fists. The bruises on her arms, stark beneath the hospital lights, seemed to pulse with memories she couldn't outrun. Walter moved first, not abruptly, not loudly, but with the steady certainty of a man who had walked through chaos and emerged with purpose. He approached her slowly, giving her the space to pull away if she needed. She didn't pull away. Her breath hitched, and when she finally spoke, her voice was paper-thin. "He's really gone. For now," Walter said. He didn't sugarcoat it. Lies had been Rose's prison for too long. "But he won't get near you again. Not while I'm here." Rose hugged her arms around herself. I don't know what to do now. The honesty in her voice pierced him. This wasn't just fear, it was the collapse of an entire world she had been forced to survive in. A world that had told her she had nowhere else to go. Walter's tone softened. You breathe. That's what you do next. Everything else comes later. She blinked rapidly, tears threatening again. I haven't breathed in years. Mateo approached, his posture relaxed for her sake, though tension still lingered in his eyes. The officers are filing a temporary protection order, at least until morning. Rose's eyes dimmed. Morning? And then what? He'll get lawyers. He'll twist everything. He always does. Walter exchanged a look with Mateo before answering. Let me worry about him. Rose shook her head, voice breaking. But you don't have to. You don't owe me anything. I don't even know you. Walter felt something shift in his chest, an old wound stirred by her words. You don't know me, he agreed quietly. But I know you. And I made a promise long before you were old enough to remember it. Mateo stepped back, giving them space. Rose stared at Walter, confusion and curiosity warring in her expression. Promise? To who? To your father, he said. She went still. My father? Walter nodded. He saved my life once, and with his last breath he asked me to protect what mattered to him most. Rose's knees wobbled. She leaned against the nearby wall for balance. He talked about me? Only about you, Walter said. A tear slipped down her cheek, the kind of tear that didn't come from sadness, but from finally learning the truth buried under years of lies. I thought, he left us, she whispered, that he didn't care. Your mother cared. He cared. They both tried to protect you. Rose shook her head again, overwhelmed. But why didn't you come sooner? Walter inhaled slowly, as though the question pierced deeper than she intended. Because I thought distance was the safest place for you. I thought staying out of your life kept you far from mine. I thought the world I live in was poison. She looked up at him, eyes rimmed red. And now? Now I see I was wrong, he said. And I won't make that mistake again. Rose covered her mouth, emotion cracking through her like light through broken glass. I don't know how to be safe, she whispered. That's why I'm here, Walter said simply. To teach you. Mateo cleared his throat softly. Boss, security wants to talk to you. They're asking for statements. Walter nodded. Handle what you can. I'll speak to them when she's stable. Mateo dipped his chin in acknowledgement and walked off. Rose hesitated before reaching out barely a touch, barely pressure her fingertips brushing Walter's sleeve. Please, she whispered. Don't leave. Walter didn't flinch, didn't hesitate. I'm not going anywhere. He guided her gently back into her room. She sat on the edge of the bed, exhausted, her shoulders slumping as the adrenaline that had kept her upright finally drained away. The window beside her showed the faintest hint of early dawn, a wash of gray-blue light beginning to replace the night. It cast her bruised face in a softer tone, making her look fragile and strong all at once. Rose followed his gaze. Morning's coming. Yes, Walter said. A new one. She gave a hollow laugh. What am I supposed to do with a new morning? Survive it, Walter answered. With me. A soft knock sounded, and a nurse peeked in. Sorry to interrupt, but we need to update her vitals. Rose tensed immediately, shrinking into herself. Walter stepped to her side, voice calm. It's all right. She can proceed. Rose nodded reluctantly. As the nurse gently checked her pulse and ribs, Rose winced at every touch, but she kept her eyes on Walter as if his presence was the only thing keeping her from falling apart. Her breathing grew shaky again. It still hurts, she whispered. It will, Walter said honestly. But you won't hurt alone. A tear slid down her cheek. She wiped it quickly, embarrassed, but Walter didn't look away. He didn't pity her. He witnessed her pain, which was something no one in her life had ever done without using it against her. When the nurse finished, she stepped out, leaving them alone again. Rose stared at her hands. What if he gets out? What if he comes back? What if the courts believe him? He always wins. Always. Walter sat in the chair beside her. He won't win this time, because you're not fighting alone. She looked at him, searching for deception, expecting disappointment, bracing for betrayal. She found none. Her voice cracked. Why are you helping me? Really? Walter's gaze softened. Because your father asked me to protect you, and because I should have been here sooner. She swallowed hard. And now, Walter said gently, I'm giving you a place where he can't touch you. Her brows knitted. A place? My home. Walter clarified. Not a prison, not a cage. A safe haven. Protected, guarded. A place where you can heal. Rose blinked rapidly. You want me to live with you? For now, he said, until you're ready to choose your own life without fear. Her breath trembled. I don't know if I can trust you. I don't expect you to, Walter said. Trust is earned. I'm willing to earn it. Her throat tightened. Why? Because you deserve better than the life he forced on you. Rose's eyes glistened. I'm scared. I know, Walter said softly. But I'm not asking you to be fearless. I'm asking you to let me carry the fear with you. A sob escaped her, small and raw. She leaned forward, slightly hesitant, unsure like a child learning if it was safe to reach for comfort. Walter didn't move until she closed the distance herself, resting her forehead lightly against his chest. He exhaled a slow, careful breath and lifted a hand to her back, touching her as though she might break under anything heavier. Thank you, she whispered. Walter didn't answer aloud. He didn't need to. The dawn pushed further into the sky, pale gold bleeding into the gray. Rose's breathing steadied, and her trembling eased. Walter felt something shift inside him, subtle, dangerous, irreversible. He had walked into this hospital as a mafioso honoring a debt. Now, he understood the truth. He wasn't protecting Rose because of her father. He was protecting her because she needed him. Because someone had to. Because promises weren't meant to be forgotten, they were meant to be lived. Mateo returned quietly. Boss, they're ready for you. Walter nodded and stood, but Rose caught his sleeve again. You'll come back? She whispered. He leaned close, his voice steady, anchoring her. Always. And for the first time in years, Rose believed someone. Morning broke gently over Street Augustine Hospital. Soft gold swelled through the windows, warming the cold white walls that had witnessed screams, truths, and a man's downfall just hours before. The night's chaos left behind a fragile stillness, like petals floating after a storm. Inside Rose Maxwell's room, the quiet was delicate but not empty. Rose slept curled under her blankets, her breathing finally deeper than a frightened gasp. For the first time in years, sleep had found her instead of fear, dragging her into darkness. Walter stood by the window. He hadn't left. Not when the officers asked for statements. Not when Mateo warned him that the rival crew Weaver had been dealing with might retaliate. Not when Rian suggested he take a moment to rest. Walter Costa did not rest when the person he'd sworn to protect was within reach of harm. He kept his eyes on the sunrise, arms folded, back straight, expression unreadable. But his mind was far from the dawn. He was thinking of Ethan Maxwell, of a man dying on a cold street, blood leaking between his fingers, whispering, "Watch over her." Walter had honored the words, but not the spirit. He'd given money, distance, anonymous protection, but he had not given presence. Now, looking at the sleeping girl who had survived years of terror without knowing anyone would ever come for her, Walter felt the sharp ache of regret, quiet, relentless. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Rian stepped inside, closing the door gently behind him. "Boss," he murmured. "They've taken Weaver downtown. He's in holding for now." "For now," Walter echoed. Rian nodded. "Charges are stacking. The officers recorded everything. The nurses submitted statements, and Mateo gave the hospital a copy of the evidence. It's over for him." Walter didn't look away from the sunrise. Men like him don't accept endings. They claw until their nails crack. "His claws are gone," Rian said. "The badge was his shield. It won't save him now." Walter exhaled slowly. "What about the rival crew?" "Watching movements," Rian answered. "We doubled security around your penthouse and the safe houses. Mateo has scouts out near the East District. Nothing yet." "It will come," Walter murmured. Rian hesitated. "Are you sure taking Rose into our territory is safe? If they retaliate, leaving her unprotected is more dangerous," Walter said, tone firmer now. "She has nowhere else to go." Rian glanced at her sleeping form. "She trusts you. She doesn't know me yet," Walter corrected. "She trusts safety. And right now I represent that." Rian nodded. "The car is ready whenever you are." Walter didn't respond. His gaze drifted again to Rose, small, fragile, bruised, but no longer alone. Rian softened. "Boss, you did the right thing." Walter almost smiled, but it didn't reach his lips. "The right thing rarely comes without a cost." Rian left quietly. The room fell silent again. A minute passed, then another, and then Rose stirred. Her hand curled against the blanket. Her face tensed with the beginnings of fear, instinctive, conditioned. automatic. But when her eyes opened, they landed not on Weaver's towering shadow or a door flung open in rage. They landed on Walter Costa. Her breath steadied as recognition settled in. "You stayed," she whispered. "I said I would," Walter replied. She pushed herself slowly upright, wincing as her bruised ribs protested. Walter stepped closer, offering a hand, not touching her, just giving her the option. She accepted it, her fingers trembling against his palm. "Are they taking him away forever?" she asked, voice small. "For a very long time," Walter said. "And even when the law is finished with him, I'm not." Rose nodded, eyes clouding with worry. "Will you get in trouble? Because of me?" "No," Walter said simply. "Everything happening to him, he earned. You didn't cause any of it." She looked down at her lap. "It feels like I did." "That's because he taught you to think pain was your responsibility," Walter said. He was wrong. Her throat tightened, tears building again. "I don't know how to be anything except afraid." "Fear keeps you alive," Walter said softly. "But it doesn't have to decide your life anymore." Rose looked up at him, searching his expression for cracks, for deception, for disappointment. She found none. "So, what happens now?" she asked. "Now," Walter said, "you come with me." Her breath caught. "To your home, to safety," he clarified. "To a place with guards, security, and people who answer to me. Not because you're a prisoner, because you're under my protection." Rose hesitated. "Do you really want me there?" Walter met her gaze squarely. "Yes," she exhaled shakily. "Okay," Walter nodded. "We'll leave soon. The nurses want a final evaluation." A soft knock sounded, and a middle-aged nurse entered with a clipboard. Rose stiffened instantly, but Walter remained beside her, his presence anchoring her again. As the nurse checked her pulse and asked gentle questions, Rose answered quietly, flinching only when the stethoscope brushed a bruise. Walter observed every wince, every tremble, memorizing the map of her pain with silent fury. When the nurse left, Rose glanced at him. "I'm scared to leave this room." "Then we'll walk slowly," Walter said. She gave a weak smile, small, but real. Walter helped her slide into a pair of hospital-provided clothes. The loose shirt hung awkwardly over her bruised ribs, and her knees wobbled when she stood. He steadied her with a hand at her elbow. "Ready?" he asked. She nodded. They walked out into the hallway. Every nurse, every guard, every staff member stopped what they were doing. Not out of fear of Walter, but for Rose. They watched her slowly step into a world she no longer had to face alone. At the elevator, Mateo and Rian stood waiting. "Cars out front," Mateo said. "Clear route." Rose shrank slightly behind Walter. The idea of stepping into the open again, exposed, vulnerable, made her breathing hitch. Walter sensed it. "You walk beside me," he said quietly. "No one touches you." She nodded, gripping his sleeve. The elevator descended, and when the doors opened to the lobby, the morning light greeted them soft, warm, almost gentle. Walter's men stood outside in two lines, forming a protective corridor leading to the waiting SUV. It wasn't a show of power. It was a promise. As Rose stepped between them, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Safe. The SUV door opened. She paused before getting in. "You're home. Is it dangerous?" Walter answered honestly. "It's only dangerous to people who intend to hurt you." Rose bit her lip. "And what if someone comes after you because of me?" His eyes softened. "Then let them come." She didn't understand the depth of that promise yet, but she would. She climbed into the car. Walter took the seat beside her. Mateo and Rian sat up front. As the SUV pulled away from the hospital, Rose watched Street Augustine shrink in the rearview mirror. For years, that building had represented either suffering or silence. Now it represented escape. "Is your home far?" she asked. 20 minutes, Walter said. Rose hesitated. "Will there be a lot of people?" "Only my most trusted," he replied. "They'll treat you with respect." She nodded, but her fingers trembled in her lap. Walter reached over and lightly placed his hand on hers, not gripping, not guiding, just offering. She didn't pull away. "I don't know how to live a normal life," she whispered. "I don't know how to be free." "You'll learn," Walter said. "I'll teach you." Her eyes filled. "Why? Why help someone like me?" Walter looked at her fully, openly. "Because for too long, no one helped you," he said. "And because you deserve a future not shaped by fear." A tear rolled down her cheek. She brushed it away but nodded slowly. The SUV turned onto a gated road lined with tall trees and stone walls. Beyond the iron gates stood a sprawling estate, modern, secure, imposing. Rose swallowed. That's where you live? Yes. And I can stay there? For as long as you need. She stared at the estate, awe mixing with disbelief. This feels unreal. What feels real is that you're safe now, Walter murmured. The SUV rolled through the gates. Inside the estate, guards stood at attention, watching respectfully as the car approached the entrance. When Walter stepped out, they nodded. When Rose stepped out, they lowered their eyes, not in disdain, but in silent reassurance. Walter offered her his hand again. She took it. Inside the foyer, the polished floors gleamed, and warm light filled the space. It felt nothing like the house she had escaped, nothing like Weaver's domain of lies and control. Walter led her down a hallway to a quiet bedroom. Soft colors, clean sheets, a window overlooking the gardens. This is yours, he said. Rose stepped inside slowly, as though afraid the room might disappear if she breathed too hard. She touched the edge of the bed, then the curtain, grounding herself in the gentleness of it all. Turning back to him, she whispered, "Thank you." Walter exhaled a quiet release of something heavy. "Rest, Rose. No one touches you again." She nodded, tears glistening. Walter stood in the doorway for a moment longer, watching her take in the room, the safety, the promise of something new. Then he turned away, walking down the hall toward the dawn spreading across his estate. He had kept his promise, but protection, he realized, was not the end. It was the beginning. Thanks for staying with this story right till the final moment. You're the reason these stories come alive. If you're ready for another powerful journey, just tap the next video on your screen. And before you go, leave a quick comment and rate this story from 1-10. I'm excited to see your thoughts and connect with you down there.
Там кредиты и так далее настолько загоняют каждого в задницу человека. И об этом на самом деле никто так-то не говорит. Какое количество сейчас, допустим, даже в те же сложные времена такие, когда вот сейчас идет там специальная военная операция, да, где люди вообще умирают, в принципе, за какую-то сумму денег. Ну, то есть, какая мотивация, то есть, у мужика идти, типа, на войну, воевать и, ну, как бы заработать денег? Потому что он вот в обычной жизни не понимает, типа, как реализовать себя. Ну, он понимает, что он может пойти работать на какую-то работу, где зарплаты его все равно не будет хватать. Как бы тут тоже двойственная сторона. Хорошо, когда она есть, плохо, когда ее нету. Да, вот это маленькая даже зарплаты. Но морально-то ты все равно подавлен. Ты понимаешь, да, я там пойду туда, но как бы смысла мне этого не принесет большого. Да, у меня там станет, если я вообще не работаю и буду работать за 50 тысяч, хорошо, что они у меня есть, я смогу там покушать себе купить, но это же дизмораль. Когда ты заходишь в интернет и видишь, как люди там в Дубае летают, покупают себе огромное количество автомобилей какие-то, ну, много всего такого, что ты за эту зарплату себе никогда в жизни позволить не сможешь. И как человеку оставаться морально, типа, сильным? Что ему нужно делать? Ну, наверное, во-первых, это, наверное, все от семьи исходит, да? То есть, какая семья у тебя, как она построена. Если ты один живешь, это сложно, да, ты будешь сам себя, но у тебя, опять-таки, возможно, ну, родители, если есть, которые, друзья, поддержат тебя в какой-то момент, хотя бы просто отвлекут тебя от этих мыслей. А если у тебя, к примеру, там, семья, жена, к примеру, да, есть дети, то тут, наверное, поддержка только от них исходит какая-то. Вот. Чтобы не упиваться в своих мыслях о том, что какая нынче сложная жизнь. И, наверное, других-то вариантов, в принципе-то, и нету. Какие вот еще варианты, в принципе, изменить, поменять свою жизнь настолько, чтобы она была, ну, казалась тебе удачной, да, реализованным себя в жизни, в чем-то. вот как проявляется на самом деле у нас реализованность? Наверное, у 90% случаев это финансовое благополучие, финансовая независимость. Это, наверное, одно из таких ключевых моментов, когда человек, наверное, считает себя реализованным, да, в этой жизни. То есть, как добиться этого? То есть, с учетом того, что даже возьмем нашу страну, да, сколько миллионов людей здесь живет, как каждому добиться этого результата? Непонятно. И с каждым годом просто ситуация становится все хуже и хуже. Все дорожает, люди зарабатывают либо столько же. Ну, даже если они зарабатывают столько же, на самом деле этого все уже недостаточно. К чему это все приведет на самом деле? В оконцове, наверное, мир погрязнет в большую депрессию в какую-то. Какие-то войны, возможно, или еще что-то еще больше глобальных таких вещей, которые не приведут ни к чему хорошему на самом деле. Поддержка каждого человека именно для того, чтобы он держался, наверное, морально, заключается в том, что, ну, наверное, дом, в который ты приходишь, должен быть крепостью твоей. Да? Что это единственное должно быть место, где ты будешь чувствовать себя под защитой. Для этого было придумано, наверное, своя пещера изначально, потом свои какие-то чумы, палатки различные, да, потом все это превратилось. На данный момент это у нас дома, квартиры, в которые мы приходим и должны ощущать себя в безопасности, чтобы можно быть немного морально расслабленным с учетом того, что ты выходишь каждый день на работу, на улицу, и все равно давление вот это вот, оно все равно присутствует. Когда ты заходишь в магазин, видишь цены эти, да, и так далее, не можешь себе что-то там приобрести, позволить на ежедневной основе, это откладывает большой, наверное, отпечаток. Не, наверное, а точно. И поэтому, когда возвращаясь домой, ты чувствуешь, вот хотя бы есть типа уголок того места, куда ты можешь прийти. Уголок на самом деле человеку много тоже не надо. Можно хотеть большего, но на самом деле человеку одному много не надо. Да? Ему нужно спальное место, спокойное место, где можно подумать. Ну, это когда ты один, к примеру, да? Когда у тебя есть семья, к примеру, ты приходишь домой, опять-таки, и тут хотя бы, да, поговорить о каких-то вещах. Просто об отрешенных вещах, наверное. И, возможно, при этих же условиях у тебя и появляется какая-то дополнительная мотивация для реализации себя. А когда у тебя нету ничего, вот это уже становится проблемой. И это у многих на самом деле. Что значит не иметь ничего? Тут, наверное, самое главное, дизмораль у человека еще возникает при том, что это уже, наверное, где-то в глубине души даже она возникает при даже хорошей финансовой подушке такой, которая у тебя есть, хороших финансовых деньгах, да, то есть, но нету вот внутреннего ощущения, к примеру, дружбы, семьи, любви и так далее. Это уже отдельно на самом деле разговор, потому что мы, вот, к примеру, можем взять, как сейчас вот Новстрой, если кто-то смотрит, насколько тяжело обладать такими финансами и не иметь, по сути, ничего. ни друзей, ничего не иметь. Так главное это получается для бедных главное деньги, для богатых главное какое-то внутреннее ощущение нужности, не из-за денег. Вот такой вот. И эта борьба какая-то такая и вот эти два слоя общества, богатые и бедные, они друг друга не понимают. На самом деле из-за этого, возможно. Потому что богатый человек, он уже не смотрит на деньги, он не считает эти деньги. Ему важно внутреннее вот это вот ощущение того, что он нужен без них даже. Это как Тони Старку сказали: а кто ты без костюма? На вот это, я филантроп, тудым-сюдым, он сказал, да? Так и человеку, у которого много денег, ты задашь вопрос: а кто ты без денег? Ну, что ты представляешь себе без денег? Вот, и это, наверное, возможно, таких людей богатых, как вот, например, там, Мелстрой, задав ему этот вопрос: а кто ты без денег? Он на него ответить-то и не сможет. Обратная сторона людей бедных, да, вот если мы посмотрим, человеку